Hello and welcome to your daily dose of Satoshi's news. Today's day is Saturday, the 23rd of August, 2025, the year BSV comes alive. Branch your threads, expand your mind with treechat.ai or your post put on chain. Right, let's see what we've got today. I'm having a chat. This is going to be a podcast with Mark, the bowler hat farmer. I'm really looking forward to this. It's going to be quite exciting. So as soon as the intro song finishes, we will crack on. Let's go.
Toshi, like a cowboy in the West, riding on the blockchain that they call the very best. 1 million strong and transactions flying free. Just wait for the terror node, you'll surely see.
There we go. Right, we are rocking and rolling here. So, Mark, the bowler hat farmer, would you like to first of all introduce yourself to my listeners and also the usual crowd who know you are, or know who you are, and just tell them a little bit about yourself?
Hi guys, it's Mark the bowler hat farmer here. I have been on a challenging quest over the last 6 months touring the UK, touring around the UK to talk about food and farming and the desecration that's happening within the food supply chains, and looking at how, from a farming point of view, we best fight back, which is why I was told to speak with you.
Thought you might do. Yeah, good. So you're probably aware that all legal and political influence stem from economic power. And this is how the government are controlling the farmers. So as you probably know, it was after the Second World War that they gave the farmers subsidies. And as you said in your talk earlier, it's the supermarkets that have soaked up all of those subsidies. Yeah. So that is actually another form of money laundering, because what the cabal do is they own all the banks and they somehow want to distribute it out to their network. But they always use third parties so that people can't see that it's actually them doing it. So a way to get funds indirectly to people in their own organization is something like this. They'll tell you that they'll say to the farmers, oh, look, we'll subsidize you. But where's that subsidy going? Well, it's going back to the supermarkets that they own. It's not going into the pockets of the ordinary people that they claim to be helping.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we've seen in the farming industry especially is how this has been played with, manipulated. So classic example of this is how much farmers are being paid for grain this year is £125 a tonne. Now, they were paid £127 a tonne in 1972. Right, now the cost of production's obviously gone up massively, because in 1972 a tonne of fertiliser was £22 and now it's £800. That gives you an idea. Seed, same difference. So the cost of production now is so high that a farmer will lose £100 to farm an acre of land. Lose £100. Work that out. I mean, how long can they keep this up? So something has to change. So what I want to know is, as we roll through this, is really what opportunities there are for farmers. And, I've interviewed people about trusts. And whilst I understand it in very simple principles and an understanding of it, it still doesn't resolve the monetary value, what we need to buy the land, what is going to be required in the future. Because at the moment, banks are railroaded, banks, whether it be BlackRock, Vanguard, Backstreet, whoever,
Backstreet Boys,
are quite happily rolling over all the farmers. Government's even paying farmers £300,000 to sell the farm, tax-free, as just a bonus pension pot to go out of farming with. We cannot continue to have no farmers. So what I want to know is how we change it.
Yeah, so in order to know how to change it, in order to come up with a solution, obviously, first of all, you need to fundamentally understand the problem. And the problem is the securities fraud that the banks create from nothing. So they have an unlimited amount of economic power. So the case law that actually puts the bank on the back foot and out of business is a case that was settled called the SEC versus W.J. Howico 1946. And it's that case that identifies fiat currency as securities fraud. And as Lord Denning said in Lazarus Estates versus Beazley, fraud unravels all. If fraud is found in any process, it null and vitiates the entire thing. So anything that the government has actually, or the banks, or anybody has purchased using fiat currency, it's been purchased via fraudulent means. But because they can print an unlimited amount of this fiat currency, the securities fraud, this promissory notes, even though you can't securitize a promise because a promise is not a contract, a promise therefore can't be enforced, a promise therefore has no value. So a promissory note is securities fraud, just like you can't securitize opportunity, you can't securitize chance, you can't securitize luck, you can't securitize a promise. But this is the level of ignorance that we're dealing with. And farmers are just like, well, hold on a minute, why are prices going up? And I saw a TV screen on a train journey on the way back up to the north of England the other day, and it said airfares and airfares and something else, something ridiculous, has caused inflation to jump up 3.8%. And that really actually got my goat, because inflation is just simply the inflation of the currency supply. And when you increase the supply of something, you reduce the demand. And that's what actually causes the increase in prices. It's the devaluation of the currency. So it should be, the Bank of England has actually devalued the currency by 3.8%, which has caused prices to rise. But
the
people
everyday
know,
person doesn't understand that, do they? And this is where the challenge comes.
Yeah. So from your point of view, as from being a farmer and being involved in the farmers, with the farmers, how do you think, or what is the best way to possibly get an education over to them where they might actually understand the problem that fiat currency is not money? I mean, from my own personal experience, when I listen to the likes of Catherine Austin Fitz and Richard Werner, it's quite clearly obvious that even those two, who are the two sort of like eminent people that people go to when there's a problem with the economy, they don't know the difference between money and currency. So how are farmers ever gonna figure this out?
They're not. That's what I think they have to be understanding of. But what I think is that if we simplify a possible solution, then farmers would buy into a possible solution. Every farmer's dream is to be able to do two things. One, to be a custodian of the land.
Yeah.
And two, to hand that title over to their children. So the problem that most farmers are having with this IHT situation, with this inheritance tax, is the fact that their belief is there's no way they can hang on to the farm, or they sell part of the farm the minute it goes down a generation. And then when it goes down another generation, the same thing happens, another generation, until they end up with no farm. All they want to do is make sure on their watch the challenge doesn't happen. So here's one of the issues. Where we live in Bury St Edmunds, when I was a child, land was £3,000 an acre. Now it's £50,000 an acre. Why is it £50,000 an acre? As you rightly said, money isn't true. It has no real value anymore. So if the bank wants to print money to bankrupt a farmer, they can. Yeah. So, and that's what's been going on. So from my side, all I want as a farmer is a possible solution to resolve the issue in the future. So if there is a collapse, let's say, I believe within the next year there'll be a collapse in the financial markets. Lots of farmers have everything tied up in the value of the farm, whether that's finance on vehicles, on tractors, and whatever it might be, whether that's barns they've built on finance, whatever it is, it's been built on finance. The whole farm sits on a tinderbox the whole time of, can I get enough money in from this harvest to continue, or will it at least keep the bank satisfied for another year so we can try and find another solution? That cannot and will not continue. We all know that. Every farm is tinkering on the edge at the moment of going under. So from my side, what I want to know is, what are the options? So let me go down this road for you. 5 years ago, during the lockdown, I took the time to start studying crypto. Okay? And for me, I put in £500, I built it up, and over the course of the last 5 years, I've taken out £65,000 profit. Am I pleased with that? I'd like to have done more, obviously, but take the wins. Now, along that journey, I've learnt a lot, or I thought I had, until we spoke earlier. Now, from my side, obviously, Bitcoin as a value, Now, if I'm right to understand what you said to me, Bitcoin, as most people know Bitcoin, is no longer Bitcoin. Fair?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so am I right to assume then, if we was talking about a high street shop here, someone has effectively stolen its branding and stolen the high street address shop what they were working in?
Yeah.
Effectively, yeah?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, because I had to get my head around this when you were talking about earlier, which is why, it's done us probably a couple of hours separated. It's done me some good, because from my side, I understand crypto enough that I've earned money out of it. I understand it from the point of how I could see, no matter what happens, right, we are moving into a digital currency market, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. And the reason I say that is because people say, I want to hang on to cash is king. Well, what are you really hanging on to? Because it's crap anyway.
Yeah.
It says on it, I promise to pay me what? So if that's no good anyway, we need a more trusting system, something that cannot be played with, manipulated. So when, from my side, I hold XRP, I've got a little bit of Bitcoin, what I thought was Bitcoin. So when you said earlier that, well, actually that's not Bitcoin, and you explained from your side where we are on the principle of the value of Bitcoin, because I think Bitcoin, as I thought I knew it, sits at about £80,000 at the minute. Yeah. If we're sitting on £80,000 and someone's sitting there with a couple of Bitcoin thinking that things are really good, my belief is, and if I'm right again or wrong again, tell me, lots of people have said the fact that Bitcoin was set up by CIA. Is that the new Bitcoin what was set up by the CIA?
Yeah.
Because obviously the one thing what's going to happen, I think we're all realistic to know, is the fact that when the monetary system drops, everything will drop. All cryptos as well. Everything will be out the window. And people think that's the answer. So now tell me about the real Bitcoin, because that's the bit to me what possibly offers a solution for the farmers from affordability point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what so many people miss about the Bitcoin white paper and should appeal to farmers. So what the Bitcoin actually did for the first time in history was express how to commoditize digital data. Now, commodities are common to everybody, and they therefore have a common value. And its money has to be a commodity because it's a medium of exchange that allows goods and services to be exchanged for something that has common value in the economy itself. So goods are manufactured, and they obviously have a central point of creation, so they're not common. Securities are issued, so by a higher authority, they're not common. Services are provided and therefore can't be transported. The only thing that has common value in an economy is a commodity. Now, if you want to know what the most valuable money is going to be, all you have to do is commoditize the most useful resource. And by far the most useful resource in today's day and age is digital technology, because we use digital technology for everything. We're recording this digitally. Our voices are being converted into sort of like digital files. We've got images on here. This is going to be uploaded onto a digital platform. People are going to be listening to this through a digital medium. Even Visa, MasterCard, all of our central banking systems, they're all done digitally. Think about all the trading on the stock market that's done in in the FTSE. Well, the FTSE, we've got like the Dow Jones, the Nasdaq, the London stock market. Everything is digital. All of these figures are digital. But all of these figures that we're looking at that are digital are held on private corporate servers. And whoever it is that owns those servers owns the digital information that's on it, and they have got the right to simply delete it. That's the problem. So at the moment, you're probably aware that loans are given digitally. They go into our digital bank accounts. So all these people are saying, oh, we need to get away from digital. You can't get away from digital. You go into a supermarket or just prices are displayed digitally. So what we actually really need is all of this digital information being broadcast and expressed from a commoditized digital network. And a commoditized digital network is a network that doesn't have any central point of authority or control. And the only way to have a digital network that doesn't have any central point of authority or control is to make sure that it operates via economic incentive and not operates via centrally control.
Yeah.
So in order to have multiple operations sustaining the network, that network has to run on a digital asset. And Bitcoin is that asset. So you buy Bitcoin to use the network in order to upload all of your digital information onto it, where it cannot be cracked, hacked, altered, changed, or deleted. Now, if you are a digital company like Google, Amazon, Facebook, Netflix, or any of these smaller companies, the small to medium-sized enterprises that are snapping at their heels, that have the majority of their businesses in a digital format, you cannot afford to lose a single record of any of your digital transactions or any of the purchases that your customers have made or any of the supply chain records that you might be keeping. So these companies spend millions, if not billions of dollars protecting this digital information on their corporate servers from cybersecurity acts, virus software, central points of attack or failure, to upkeep and service. Now they can do away with all of that and they can put every single digital record on the Bitcoin network for the cost of a micro payment. So one, not only is it a lot cheaper because you're not paying a monthly subscription, but you only pay for what you use in the form of a micropayment. And so you buy Bitcoin in order to upload your information onto the network because the Bitcoin miners will process your digital upload because you paid a little bit in Bitcoin. And the supply of Bitcoin is fixed, so therefore it continues to go up in value. Now, what Satoshi Nakamoto did was a genius thing in that he knew that in order for a digital network to be a commoditized digital network, the network would have to go through a process of commoditization, which is a period of neutral organic growth without any central point of influence. And that neutral organic growth period of Bitcoin was due to finish on the 1st of January 2020. And this is why the cabal brought in COVID lockdown. Because they wanted to lock the economy down because they were shitting themselves that people were actually going to start using the genuine Bitcoin for trading of goods and services, which they couldn't allow. But they didn't realize this until sort of like fairly late on because Bitcoin was new to everybody and Satoshi Nakamoto had hidden his identity away from people. So people didn't know who he was. So they were just like, okay, we don't really know what this thing is, but we somehow need to corrupt it because we want people in our central banking system because that's the system that we're using to asset strip the entire world. So when Klaus Schwab said you will own nothing and be happy, well, it's the banking system that's orchestrating that to happen. Because if you want to destroy, vast areas of I suppose, like society, you have to do it economically. And what you touched on and alluded to earlier about how they're dismantling our infrastructure, they're getting rid of the power stations and they're putting it in solar farms and these wind turbines and all this kind of stuff. Well, all you've got to do is look back at China in the late 1950s to early 60s when David Rockefeller and Henry Kissinger orchestrated the Great Leap Forward in China, where between 15 and 55 million Chinese people perished due to, human error, human manufactured.
Now, one of the things on that, do you know how they did that?
Oh, I know, through starvation and stuff.
Starvation, what they did was paid all of the children to kill sparrows because the sparrows were eating 1% of the grain, they thought, right? So they paid all the children money. Every time you bring a sparrow into the police station, they gave you a coin, right? So they killed millions of them. But the birds weren't eating the grain. They were eating the insects that were eating the grain. So they killed the birds. The insects ate the crop rife, and everyone starved.
Oh, so right. So it was the sparrows that were eating the insects that were eating the food.
Yeah. So they saw the sparrows as the issue. The sparrows were the solution.
Wow.
So obviously from my side, most farmers deal in cash. And for me, the future solution is not cash, right? Because we know if they want to get rid of cash, they'll do it in an instant. All they'll do is just say it has no value anymore.
Yeah.
Inflation will run rife. Instead of buying, a sack of potatoes for £10, it'll be £2,000.
Yeah.
It's easy to get rid of cash. So the solution moving forward, I'm conscious to want to know. So let's backtrack to our conversation earlier. The original digital currency of Bitcoin is worth currently what?
The genuine one is worth about $26, which is about 20 quid.
20 quid. Okay. So from my side, I'm someone who's played about with the crypto, has earned money out of it, and is happy to put some money back into new currencies, or old, in accordance to which it may be. So what I want to know is, one, where do I go to get it, and how do I get it? How do I get the money onto the platforms? Because I transferred out a load of XRP the other day, and no sooner had I done it, I got a text message from Barclays Bank to tell me, as of the 1st of October, I will not be able to transfer in or out any more than £10,000 in or out of crypto in a month. That was within seconds of me taking it off the exchange.
You're lucky they didn't close your account. That's what they normally do to people these days.
So, luck or not, whatever. So how do I, one, get the money onto the exchange to buy? What exchange is the best exchange? Because I've obviously, as I said earlier, I've played about between Binance, Coinbase, all sorts of exchanges I've been on and off of. And some they've closed my accounts down because they didn't like how I traded, because I earned money, they don't like that, obviously. So for me, traveling around, meeting farmers, looking at solutions for the future, if I could, in my own head, understand that I could show farmers, how do we go about is that something we can stick on a phone?
Yeah.
Through an app? Is that something that we can, easily, if I could spend 10 minutes with a farmer and say, look, if I can show you the possibility of a solution for a few hundred quid, let's say, most farmers are looking at spending thousands of pounds, and I mean tens of thousands of pounds, just to look at trusts to keep the farm safe.
Yeah.
And it still doesn't change the fact that if the government wants to take that land from you, they can and will. Because this is only in the future going to come down to who has the deepest pockets.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Yep.
Yeah. And at this point in time, because of the lies and the corruption inside the system, the deep pockets are sitting with those who have the printing press.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Whether the printing press is real or
it's real.
On a screen.
Well, on a screen these days.
So how do we go about that? Because for me, that's the bit what excites me.
Excellent. Right. So a few things in that. So first of all, the way to purchase it is very easy. Very easy. So easy, in fact, the banks are shitting themselves about it. People don't realize how easy it is. They've purposely sort of put all this misinformation out into the public. So people think, oh, I can't do this. There's so much like this and that, and people are telling me different things. I don't know how to do it. Now, unfortunately, I can't tell you on this show how to do that because it is that easy. They will take my channel down because that's what's happened before. But what I can do is I've actually written this in an article, which is online. I can send that to you. And then anybody who contacts you, you can send that to them and you can read how to do it. And it's very easy. And that's why I'm not putting out on this show, because the banks are shitting it. When people realize how easy it is, it's literally like WhatsApp. You download WhatsApp on your phone, you type a message, click to send. That's it. It's the same with Bitcoin. It's that easy. That's why they're so scared of it. And this is why they've created this, $4 trillion shitcoin market with coins in it like XRP, and what they've done is stolen the ticker symbol of BTC, which used to represent the genuine Bitcoin, and put it on their own central bank creation. And then they've also spun the narrative saying, oh, the NSA have created that. Well, let me tell you, the NSA, they did create SHA-256, which is the hash function that protects the internet. Now, all Satoshi Nakamoto did is use that to generate economic competition within the Bitcoin network, which they call proof of work.
Yeah.
It's so when they say, oh, the NSA created SHA-256, therefore they must have created Bitcoin. No, it's just more bullshit and FUD. And let me tell you something. So if the NSA or any of these three-letter agencies like the CIA and the FBI, they do not want to be accountable for anything. If they were to go and create sort of like a digital system, they would want to create, which is what they've created with the central banks, which is what they have control over. They can see what we're buying and selling and what we're spending, but we don't know what they're doing because they own the servers. So if they had created Bitcoin, they wouldn't have created it with a chain of digital signatures, which leads to the living men and women who are individually then responsible for how they use the network. And if they start using the network, whoever it is that's in the network, they will be holding themselves responsible because their digital signature is on every transaction that they cannot get rid of, because that is recorded immutably on the blockchain. They will eventually be found out. So what happens is, with a chain of digital signatures, that creates a private association of users. So I might send you some funds, you might send that on to somebody else. All I know is that I've sent you some funds and you've sent them on to someone else, but I don't know who. So the only way I could possibly find out is by asking you individually. I'd be like, Mark, I sent you some funds, you sent them on to someone else, would you please tell me who it is? You would say, well, why do you want to know? And I would say, well, that transaction was taken place at this particular time, and we believe it's associated with child trafficking, gun running, drug dealing. We don't want that in our society. Will you help us stamp it out? So it's literally like old school detective work, knocking on doors, following the chain of signatures back to a particular transaction that was in the right time and probably the right size amount for this, dealing in children or whatever. So we can stamp out, and that is not what the three-letter agencies want. They do not want accountability or responsibility for anything. And so this is why we know the three-letter agencies are involved in corrupting the BTC ticker symbol, because in 2017 they implemented what they said was a software upgrade called segregated witness, abbreviated to SegWit. Now the witness is the signature data, because when you witness something, you sign it. So the witness is the signature data, and segregated just simply means there is a barrier between what it was attached to. It's now been segregated. So that digital signature is now no longer on a Bitcoin transaction. They have been downloading the signatures onto their own private servers, which means, should they want to in the future, they could potentially reassign blame for any transaction that they don't want to be associated with. So we know the three-letter agencies were involved in SegWit, which is on the BTC network, which is now, you're looking at like $100,000 per coin. But when they fundamentally altered the protocol by segregating the digital signatures, they could no longer use the #1 legacy address. Because what Satoshi Nakamoto did, which was genius, is that whenever you get the first product off the production line, or something comes first, it carries another #1 to prove that it is the original, it is the authentic, it is the first. So Satoshi Nakamoto bagged the #1 legacy address for Bitcoin. Anything that goes through the Bitcoin protocol carries with it the #1 legacy address. But when you change any elements of that protocol, you can't send digital transactions to that same address anymore. So the address has to change. And in 2017, the BTC legacy addresses started to begin with either the number 3 or the letters BC. And the moment I pointed this out, and I had a very small channel with 500 subscribers, it got taken down. So I thought, oh, this must be a mistake. Surely they won't be looking at me. I'm only just sort of like pointing out what everybody can see. So I set another channel up. The next day, no subscribers, taken down. So I was like, whoa, I'm onto something here. So what we're now looking at is a $2 trillion fraud. It's the biggest fraud in financial history, and they've allowed a shitcoin market to develop with all these digital, economically worthless securities, and the only purpose it serves is to distract people away from the one protocol that threatens their economic power and dominance, which is a fully digitized commodity. which has true economic value. And if people realize this, we would get out of this shit because they wouldn't be able to asset strip us anymore or manipulate the financial markets in the way that they do.
Okay, understand that. Is there within this system a way where I, as a consumer, could go to a farm, or as a farmer, consumers could come to me, let's say, and spend their Bitcoin with me? Because
Absolutely.
that's the crucial point in the future.
Yeah.
How are we going to exchange in a transaction? And obviously, at this point, people pull out some notes out of their pocket, hand it over. No one knows it exists. Nobody knows it's real. Why they have ID numbers on them, God knows, because it makes no sense. They print what they want anyway. So there is a way in which we can do it simply.
Absolutely.
Because this, like it comes back to, if you used to dab in a credit card.
Yeah.
I've transferred, crypto about. Once you understand the basics of how to do it, it isn't particularly difficult, right?
Absolutely.
Because all you're doing is working off effectively an ID registration, what belongs to that person.
Mm-hmm.
So you take that coin value and send it to that person. The same?
Yeah. Literally, the way it works and the way it functions is exactly the same. And it's the same as WhatsApp. You download the WhatsApp, you type a message, you swipe and send. This is where understanding the protocol, which is what's under the hood, under the bonnet, is really important. And the way you can confirm that the protocol is a commoditized protocol is that it carries the #1 legacy address. And this is it. It's very simple. The network itself has to be globally distributed, and each component has to be economically competitive to one another. So if one gets taken offline, it doesn't affect the network at all. Also, without competition, you simply get collusion and centralization. So that's the foundation principle of the Bitcoin network. It must be distributed, and each component must be economically competitive. The second thing is that each transaction must have a digital signature attached to it, so there is claim on it. Someone can prove a claim, it therefore has contractual credibility and therefore economic value. So if I send a transaction to someone and I either don't get the good or service that I expected, or they do a runner, then I obviously want my money back. Now, provided the courts aren't corrupt, what you should do is go to a third party, a court, who can solve the dispute for you. And the first thing they will ask you for is evidence. And the only way you can prove that that transaction belongs to you, because it's not tangible, it's in the digital world, is if your digital signature is attached to it. Without that digital signature, you have got nothing. And the cabal knew that. So it's globally distributed, economically competitive, a chain of digital signatures, an unbounded scaled network. So in other words, nobody can be priced out or volumed out. So in other words, it can absorb the entire world's internet traffic and nobody has to wait in line. No artificial queues are created. And then the asset that is used to economically incentivize the miners to process the network must be fixed in supply. Because if it can be inflated, you have a central point of authority inflating it to their own advantage, and it can't be deflated because otherwise they would take it to zero. So it must be fixed in supply, and those elements that I've just told you there must be locked forever. And it's that protocol that carries the #1 legacy address. And literally, once you understand that, you download the wallet, you send and receive, that is it.
Okay, so let's take my audience. I only talk about food and farming, on my channel, and we've got about 80,000 followers now across social media. So if I'm to share this video out and have a basic understanding of what the future looks like, we've got a system that's, I don't want to say safe and secure because that term was used in the past, right? And we know it wasn't. But you've got a system here what is effectively unfraudable.
Yeah.
Which is not something we have at present with the current situation of finance. Okay.
Absolutely.
We have something that has a real term value. Something that I think a lot of my listeners definitely won't understand is the fact that if you've got a £10 note, you can break that down into 1,000 1 pennies.
Yep.
And that's as low as you can go with that. Now, my understanding of Bitcoin is that you can take a derivative of that and you could divide it by 1 billion. Doesn't matter, in accordance to how small you need to transact or how valuable it becomes in the future.
Well, because it's digital, it's effectively infinitely divisible because you can always increase the decimal place.
Yeah. Now, for most people, they're not going to be able to get their head around that, right? So basically, on the other side of that, I did a video the other day talking about value. And if we take a £20 note, even if we smash it, kick it, spit on it, bite it, whatever, it's still worth £20.
Mhm. Yep.
It doesn't matter what we do to that, it's still worth 20. If our economy tanks, it's still worth £20.
Mhm.
If we are in the position that the economy does really well, we don't benefit from that, do we? Because it's
Exactly.
still worth £20.
Mhm.
But here we've got something that potentially, as you're saying, Bitcoin's worth £20,
Mhm.
the real one.
Yep.
But if the whole financial system was to crash tomorrow and the digital assets along with that are wiped out,
Mhm.
or their true value, or not true value, so to speak, something what was worth £20 today could potentially be worth £20,000 tomorrow.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, from my side, it's a bit of a no-brainer because all we're ever looking for in life is to try and find an option for security for our families, for security for, whatever that's financial, putting a roof over our heads, putting food on the table. From my side, it always comes down to the one thing: security. So, for any farmer or friend, foe listening in on this, from my side, this is something that I could simply put even a few hundred quid into.
Yep.
That choice is obviously down to me. No one's telling me what to do here. And on a system that is trackable,
Mhm. Yep.
and on a system what potentially could give me the solution to be able to resolve any financial issues after a financial crash.
Mhm.
Fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So from my side, no-brainer.
Yeah, there we go. So it's, the one thing I would just say to conclude all this is that the way I've just described it is what's under the bonnet. But data can only be commoditized one way, which means there will only be one digital commodity, and that's what the cabal and the banks are desperate for people not to realize. So they have subverted the ticker symbol, put it on their own central bank creation, and allowed a shitcoin market to exist that's now got a $4 trillion market cap. Now, when the true value of the genuine Bitcoin is revealed due to its utility, which means it can absorb all the world's internet traffic, and we can now use it for all of our digital requirements where they can't data scrape any of the information on it, and data can't be cracked, hacked, altered, changed, or deleted, which means we can use it to get the truth out, and we can use it for voting, for example, where they can't manipulate the figures. Suddenly the truth comes out, and this is what they don't want. And the reason they've artificially suppressed the price of the genuine Bitcoin is because the narrative they're following is the market has decided it's a load of shit, don't look at it. And that's why they shut my channel down, because I was explaining to people this is what they're scared of. And what they can't deny is utility, which is going to be coming onto the network in the next few months. That's why I'm doing this interview with you.
So when you say utility in the next 2 months, explain that, because you said about this earlier and I couldn't get my head around it. So
All right. Okay, yeah, a little bit complicated. I will try and do this. So there is an issue that plagues the entire tech industry called the horizontal scaling problem. And this is where, if you want to get all of your customers onto the same software, you have to replicate the program of that software.
Yep.
Now, every time you replicate that software, the copy is not quite as pure as the first. So in the same way as recording a tape recorder over and over again, by the time you've recorded the fifth recording, the quality is so bad you can hardly listen to it. The same applies to copying a computer program. Now, this means that every single digital corporation on Earth is stuck at 50 to 60,000 transactions per second. They cannot scale past that because every time you replicate software, the quality gets worse and worse and worse.
Okay, let me just jump in there. So, from my side as the moron here, let's say, I don't know how many transactions something like credit cards must do in the course of a day, but 50 to 60,000 would not cover that.
No.
By any extreme of the imagination. So they've got to have something better than what they've got.
Well, they can only handle financial transactions, which are very, very small amounts of data, just simply numbers moving around, like a 1 to 9.
Yeah.
Pretty much that's it. So when Satoshi Nakamoto first designed Bitcoin, he designed it with what they call a memory pool, which is where all these transactions would go before they get indexed in a block and put on the blockchain. Now, this design could more than cater for all the world's financial needs. And all these companies like Visa, MasterCard, and the central banks, they should have adopted this technology because they cannot afford to lose a single record of any of their customers' transactions. And they spend millions, if not billions of dollars on securing their own servers. Now, the fact that they didn't adopt it proves to us that they have nefarious intentions. Because the only reason you would put information onto a private corporate server is if you want to control it, which means you're not considering how safe that digital information is for your customers. So you're not putting your customers first. You're putting yourself first, and because it doesn't cost you anything, because you're in bed with those who can print currency from nothing, you're just like, well, no skin off my nose. It's nothing to do with finance. It's to do with control. Now, Satoshi Nakamoto was just like, okay, well, the fact that you're not using this means that you've proved that you're nefarious. But when you try and copy and replicate my design, you're not going to know how to scale it. So the scaling capacity that's coming onto the Bitcoin network in the next few months will allow the Bitcoin network to absorb all the world's internet traffic, HD streaming, videos, social media, photographs, news reports, a voting mechanism, like everything can go on the Bitcoin network. And that is invaluable because whenever you upload something onto the Bitcoin network, you're not uploading it onto one of their private corporate servers that can data scrape all the information about you, that tells them where you've been on holiday, the name of your favorite dog, if you're having an affair with somebody, where you went for coffee. None of that. It takes us out from their financial control into the private and ultimately out from their dystopian control that they want for us. It's huge. I cannot stress this enough.
Just so I can get my head around this. So, as well as the coin side of this and the monetary side, we can effectively store any form of data via the network.
Yep.
Which
supply chains, for example,
is huge.
You
that's even bigger than the monetary side.
Yeah, it's massive. It's massive. This is this is why they keep saying not many use it. They don't want people to know what it's meant for. So let's say supply chains, you can see when the bag was first made, how much it weighed, where it came from, how much the farmer was paid. Has it been held in a particular storage container for too long? Has any weight been added to the bag? How much more was put on it? What cut did the agent take from it? You can see everything on the blockchain, on this supply chain, because the data can't be cracked, hacked, told to change or deleted, and it goes up onto a timestamp server. That's what the blockchain is. It's a timestamp server. You can see everything. You now no longer have to take anybody's word for it. And this means that they can't deny the truth, because the truth always comes first. A lie is a derivative on the truth. And what this lot do is they lie about absolutely everything for their own advantage, so they can lie and steal and cheat.
Okay, here's the scenario then. We've spent the last 6 months building a website, foodfindershub.org, where we want farmers to be able to sell their produce direct to the public, and public to be able to buy direct from a farmer. So we could run that on the system, doing all the transactions on the system, so everyone knows where everybody is. We could do all the financials through that, removing the complete supply chain away from supermarkets. Because for me, one of the challenges we've had is the supply chain that the supermarkets hold is so powerful that you cannot bring it down. Right, and now, and people have tried, including myself. And I've always said the solution is in putting together a new supply chain system.
There we go.
So we could run all of that on the system.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's massive. And the way you use the system is by uploading the data with a micro payment in Bitcoin. We're talking like 10,000ths of a cent.
Yep.
That's it. But you buy Bitcoin to use the network. And that's what they don't want you to know. And that utility has value, which means other people are just like, oh, actually, I need to use that to record my own supply chain. But I need Bitcoin for that. All right, I'll buy Bitcoin. How much will you sell it to me for? Now, because the supply of Bitcoin is fixed, the value never stops going up. But because it's infinitely divisible, it can go on forever, effectively. But what happens is the value of the Bitcoin, the total value of it, can never surpass the value of all the world's financial markets that are in existence right now, because fiat currency is a unit measurement of value. So in the same way that a kilogram is a unit measurement of weight, so if I said to you I've got a kilogram, your question would be, well, that doesn't make sense, because a kilogram is a unit measurement of weight. What do you have a kilogram of? Apples, bananas, oranges. Same with a liter. A liter is a unit measurement of volume. So have I got a liter of water, milk, coffee, oil, whatever. And it's the same with fiat currency. Fiat currency is a unit measurement of value without any value backing it. So when a true money comes along, it will take on the market capitalization of every single financial market that is currently measured in fiat currency. That's how you work out the true value. So when you've got BTC, which is their Cabal created coin, at $100,000, people are just like, oh wow, it's $100,000. That is nothing, and that's what they're scared of. This, to give an example, the derivatives market is estimated to be between $1 and $1.2 quadrillion, and a derivative is just simply a contract that is based on an already existing financial product. And that contract executes depending on how well the financial product performs. In the future, every single derivative will be a preloaded smart contract, which means Bitcoin will take on the entire value of the derivatives market. So just to give you a rough estimate, you would take $1 quadrillion, you would divide it by 21 million, and you come up with a figure of around $40 million per coin. And that's provided the supply of Bitcoin is distributed evenly, which it's not.
Okay, let me take another scenario then. Let's talk my mum.
Mm-hmm.
My mum understands cash and is not very impressed with the fact of digital currency and digital ID. Now, the reason being, she has a number of grandchildren. Grandchildren always like a little something in their Christmas card, birthday card, and that's not trackable. Now, my mum said to me the other day, well, how will that work then, darling? Talking about digital IDs and digital currencies. And she said, how will that work? She said, because the government's going to know when I give one of the kids a £5. So, bear in mind that there must be millions of those transactions happen on a daily basis. That's not trackable via the system. The government on the blockchain, on the Bitcoin, could not track that. So my mum, who wants to give her grandchildren money without anyone knowing about it, can do so in the safety of her own home.
Absolutely.
Now, that to me is probably more important, right, than the value of 20 quid or 100,000, because one of the biggest problems that we're having moving forward I think we're going to have in a new system is, if they have their way, Cabal have their way, they're going to know every time we fart.
Yep.
That's the bottom line.
Yep.
So anything that goes against that, the older generation, kids do not fear technology, which is an issue, right? People my age, 50 plus, are very concerned about where we're going on the digital. They don't want a digital ID because they know what it means. They don't want digital currency because they know what it means.
Yeah.
So for something like this, what could give them the ability to step away from the system completely, potentially, and potentially have something there for the future that if it should all go the wrong way and all go south, they're still safe. That is really powerful. And for the Molly Mops of the world, they're the people that have got a few £100 tucked under the mattress in cash that they don't know what to do with. They're the ones who I see would put the biggest amount of money into this in the shortest space of time.
Yeah, so the issue is just simply explaining it. But let me tell you one thing that really I find, which I think people need to know about, is that at the moment the government are trying to bring in digital ID, which consists of biometrics.
Yep.
Right. In the future, if we start using the Bitcoin network, a digital signature will suffice because it's private. You can validate that I was the individual that we did an
Yeah.
agreement with via my digital signature. You do not need my biometrics anymore. That's huge. You can go to the airport, you can go through customs, send a digital signature. That's it. And you can prove that cryptographically, when it was sent, what device it came from, the date and time. It's all timestamped and the data is immutable. So they've got no excuse to bring in any of their biometrics. It's huge.
But we both know the biometrics is only about control.
Absolutely, yeah.
And them having that control.
Yeah.
So,
mass surveillance.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
why we need to step into the private, which is what this allows.
Fantastic. Okay, I mean, I have no other questions because from my side, it blew my head earlier when we spoke. So I'm glad we've done this talk. So I'm the person who, I'm not a gambler. I've played about with digital currency, done all right of it. Had I lost money on it, I probably wouldn't have continued, but I've done all right out of it. So for me, for the people that I think are out there listening in, whether this is my following, I'll say, there isn't really a lot wrong with this system, is there? Because let's be honest, the system that they're guiding us towards will imprison us and enslave us forever.
Yep.
Once we're into it, there is no coming back. So, and let's say the worst case scenario comes and they continue down the road they are and they end up with a scenario that they can control us, we could still use this system to not be in their system.
Absolutely.
That to me excites me because we need to be looking, in my opinion, at the big thing which has come out of this weekend, especially with what we're talking about here, is about the solutions.
Yeah.
About how we can avoid being part of the system what exists at the moment. Mm-hmm. I'm all for bringing the system down, but if you can't bring it down, step away from it. And to step away from it, you need a new solution. Solution isn't cash, because cash is, from their side, they can devalue it whenever they want to. Absolutely. So we need a different solution. And people want to tell me, gold and silver. I don't get it. I don't work on that. We know the answer's digital. It's the way we've got to go. And this would give us all the answers, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. And the most important thing that people need to take away from this conversation is that Bitcoin is a commoditized digital network. That's how we get out of it. Get out from their centrally controlled networks into a commoditized network that doesn't have any central point of authority, control, or failure. That's it. Where we remain in the private, because it's common. Everybody is commonly accountable. Everybody is commonly in the private, which is how it should be. But it just happens to be digital. If people can get over that and realize, oh, hold on a minute, there is a way to commoditize digital data. That is the solution to all of our problems.
Well, let's face it, they've been securitizing our digital data for the last 20 years.
Absolutely.
They've raped and pillaged and sold it to everybody else.
Yeah.
And that's the bit which, we all know that has got to stop.
Yeah.
But how do we control it? Well, clearly control it ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic.
Right, Mark, this has been great. So that's been a 53-minute show. Hope everyone's enjoyed it. It's been absolutely amazing. And obviously we'll be back soon with another one. So until then, be aware, take care, stay safe out there, and we'll see you in the next one.
The king still has one more move.